will now be recorded.
Jan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 18, and Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Harwich Community Preservation Committee on Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m., now it's 6:20-ish, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties and a right and or requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the Town of Harwich website at www.harwich-ma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. On Channel 18, we're watching the simulcast at http://harwich18.dy.and-public/public/live.asx?channel 1 or ID = 1. No in-person attendance of the member of public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the Town of Harwich website an audio or a video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. The end.
Thank you, Jan. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on. Can I get approval of the CPC minutes for March 11th, 2021? Motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Roll call vote. All those in favor? Dave Nixon, aye. John Ketchum?
John Ketchum, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Harder, aye.
Donna?
I just wanted to say I had sent Jan one change of one word on the 3:11 minutes, probably about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And it was just on the on the third page, second paragraph, it was a change of the word from article to application. And if that's acceptable, then I, Donna Kalanick, aye.
Thank you, Donna. Kathy?
Kathy Green, aye.
Robert?
Robert Doan, aye.
Okay, next, the March 23rd, 2021 remote meeting, CPC minutes, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. We'll start with, I'm looking at my screen, I have so many people to choose from. Robert?
Robert Doan, aye.
Kathy?
Kathy Green, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Joe?
Joe, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye.
John?
John Ketchum, aye.
And David Nixon, aye. Okay, moving on.
Elizabeth Harder, aye.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, you're there you are. You moved from the, to the middle to the top right.
I have to keep turning my camera off. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Next, we're going to go to new business, and that's the project manager's reports, oral and or written reports. I want to start with Amy. Is she on? Conservation.
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Amy, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking me early. I promise next time you are more than welcome to put me last on your agenda. Okay, so do you just want me to go in the order that I am on? Okay.
Go in the order you're comfortable with.
Sure. So I won't speak about the Hinckley Pond Remediation Project. That is for Heinz, and I believe that that's all done. But the part that I've been a part of is the Hinckley Public Access part, which is a critical part to why I think, a lot of voters voted for the project is improvement of public access to Hinckley Pond. We set aside $75,000 from that. Now, this was back in 2018. So just to give you a little bit of an update, in early 2019, I did flag the wetland there. We did have some transition with staffing, and we are still looking for the engineering on the land side to take into account the where the wetland is versus the 50 to 100 foot buffer zones, and how the activities that are planned on the land side, which are a little picnic area, and this is right across from the old Pleasant Lake General Store for anybody who doesn't know. It's a small little area there. A little bike pavilion, some picnic tables, and an ADA view spot and a set of stairs that go down to the pond on that steep slope. So I have submitted a list of deliverables, if you will, to the engineering department, and we need to get a couple of, not necessarily, we just need to get a couple of quotes for what those services should be, which should only hopefully be a couple of $1,000s. And I know everybody is extremely taxed right now, so I try not to be too much of a pest, but I do ask. So that is where we're at in terms of that. I can say that when I priced it out back in 2018, a rough estimate for the work was under $75,000. It also includes tree work because there are some hazard trees there. That's going to take up a lot of it. So I'm a little concerned with this and the Red River project that I'll be talking about next, that with COVID and everything else, that prices for pretty much everything have really gone up. I'd be happy to get revised quotes if on the individual items, the shelter, the bike shelter, the stairs, the tree work, things like that, if the committee would like me to do that. So with that, I think for the Hinckley Landside project, I'd be open to any questions. Oh, you're muted, Dave.
Nice. Okay, we'll start with Joe.
So just to clarify, this is the land project piece, that little small piece that where the bikes hang out, and then the stairs are right there?
Correct. There's currently, it's paved right now. There's a few boulders there. It's right next to the bike trail. It's partially town land, it's partially state land. So once we have a plan, we need to run it by the state. But it's only about, I would say, 60 feet by 40 feet. It's not a huge area, but it is big enough. Yeah.
So, but would you assume your 2018 figures are going to go up just on the 75,000?
I am comfortable. I think there is, and Heinz is, can correct me, but I believe there's also additional funds from the Hinckley remediation project that could be used. I would say that, based on, what I know of tree work costing right now and just items, price of wood for picnic tables, everything is more expensive. So I'm hopeful we can still stay under 75,000. And if not, I do know there is funding still in the account for that. The alum treatment costs drastically less than we allotted for.
Okay, so that's when if there are additional funds, they could come from there. Right?
I would, if it came out to be over the 75, I would certainly come back to you to make sure that you're okay with, using additional funds that are available.
All right, I'm good.
Thank you, Joe. Donna?
Hi, Amy. How are you? I just wanted to be clear about the steps. So what you're talking about right now is you're just trying to get the engineering services. Is that correct? And then after the engineering's done, then you would go out to bid for the actual work that needs to be done there?
The actual work, each individual piece of it, it wouldn't be one contract. It's a bike shelter, which is, I had quoted at about $6,800. The most expensive thing were the stairs, which were quoted at $14,500. And the tree work was about the same. So it could be just best business practices. But we really do need the plan so we could go, approach this DCR because of the bike trail and then get permitting from the appropriate departments for the work and then hire to do the work.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a few more steps to go, and this is a really well-used area in the town of Harwich. And I mean, it's not new. I mean, we've heard from many people that, their projects are sort of stuck, but time is money, and no matter how busy you are, the longer these projects get put off, the more they're going to cost. That's just the reality of what we have to deal with. And that's something that should be considered. So thank you for your efforts, Amy.
Thank you. And again, I'm not trying to throw anybody at all under the bus. I know everyone's extremely taxed right now, so it's not that.
All set, Donna. Kathy?
Just Amy, your opening statement about how some people voted for this because of the public access, I think is an important point. And I would just, recommend that you carry on and we try to get this done as soon as we can. That's all.
Kathy's all set. Robert?
I echo Kathy's point exactly. That's it.
Mary?
Nothing further from me, just the same as Kathy and Bob. Thanks for what you're doing, Amy, and hopefully we can start making more progress on some of them because time is money. We know the cost of 2x4 is quadrupled in the last 6 months. So it's gone from like 85 cents to $8. It's absolutely insane.
Mary, Elizabeth, I caught you in the corner of my eye. Here you go.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Amy. And just ditto regarding speed is of the essence. Thanks.
John?
Yes, just thank you for all your efforts, Amy. I don't have anything to add.
And for myself, thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll move on to the Red River Stabilization project that was granted $100,000 in 2019 then. The east end of Red River Beach has been an area of concern for a number of years. The jetty that was constructed many, many years ago by the Army Corps of Engineers is becoming detached from the land, and we are seeing some what we call end scour on the back side. The Conservation Commission did approve that several years ago to extend the rocks along the back side to better protect the parking lot and also the wetland resource areas. that was held up by the state. The commission is looking, or myself on behalf of the town, I should say, is looking to refile and resubmit to the commission and the state a slightly smaller plan, if you will, about a 50-foot long extension of the rocks on the backside there. And we received CPC funding for that. And at the time, that quote came in from the Robert Auer Company about $80,000. And I did put in for $100,000 as contingency. This is another one that I would be concerned about the price at this particular point in time, and I'm more than happy to get another quote. The plans that were used in the past, we need a new plan, a new site plan for that before we can make application to the town, to the Conservation Commission, the state DEP, Army Corps of Engineers, and then finally, hopefully get the project done. So unfortunately, this one, it's still looking, with permitting itself can take well over a year for this because permitting is anything below mean high water triggers much more higher level of permitting, which equals time. So that's my update on this one. Again, more than happy to reach out and get a newer revised quote given the economy at this particular time.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Open it up to the board. We'll start with Elizabeth this time.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about this. It seems to me like we're really getting into trouble here with all the delays, and that makes me very nervous.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mary.
Thanks, Stephen. Amy, did the state deny it earlier, or are we still have we not gone forward with permitting?
Well, the Conservation Commission approved it back in 2014, 2015, that first time around. The state, they didn't, the commission officially submitted it to the state. The state essentially said, we're not approving this, so we never issued the permit, so we wouldn't get denied. In the meantime, we're looking to refile, but we need new. It's such a changing, with the erosion, it's such a changing dynamic area that new site plans are really needed fairly frequently out there to keep up with what's there.
Gotcha. Thanks, Amy.
Oh, we did, sorry, if I may, I did issue an emergency certification on behalf of the Conservation Commission last year to put blocks on that side and of the wall, cement blocks, and then fill behind that with some sand. The state did not saw that as an emergency because it's a public and health and safety hazard there, and they considered that temporary. So just for people who are watching, that area is temporarily a little more stable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. John?
Yeah, thank you. Amy, you were volunteering to get an updated estimate, but is there any point in doing that prior to getting a revised plan?
I guess it would depend on timing and the purview of the CPC. It's been 2 years. So if you would like, I'm leaving it up to you. If you would like me to get one now or wait until we have the site plan, whichever is fine, but we will, I think before moving really too much farther forward, we will definitely need a new estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Robert?
Yeah, I think that you do want to get a new site plan because it may change the estimate anyways. And my feeling from everything spoken here is that it's going to go up, and you'll have to come back for additional funding on next year's round. So I think it's more critical to focus on getting an updated plan and then getting an estimate and resubmitting the addition you need for next year's CPC money.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy?
So I just want to clarify the understanding so that as of July 2019, when the funds were released, there's been no permitting applications that have gone forward, nothing.
There couldn't have been because we need the site plan first.
Okay, and who does the site plan?
I've put in the request a while ago to have other, it was agreed that an outside entity should be doing the site plan.
Okay, and so is that something that's in the works right now? Are we in the queue for a site plan to be done by somebody?
So the last I have spoken with our town engineer, this project and the last project are in the queue. The specs for what is needed in that plan have been given. And if there's anything that I can do to help expedite getting those requests out to the engineering firms, I would be happy to do it.
Okay, that's it.
Donna? Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. I think everybody asked the questions that I had, and I would agree that it doesn't make sense to get a new quote on the work until you have the revised site plan. Thank you, Amy.
Okay, thank you, Donna. I have no questions. Amy?
Thank you very much. And for my last one, which was, hang on one second, I want to get the name right. In 2020, the restoration rehabilitation of town-owned conservation lands, in which the town granted us $20,000. We've made some progress there. That money was to go towards things like new gates, split rail fencing, signage, trail cameras, things of that nature, bollards. And we have purchased split rail fencing and have a date to install several sections of one of our conservation lands. We have some in surplus. So far, $1,100 has been spent on fencing. On signage, all of this is only for lands that have had CPC funding allotted to them. I just want to make sure, I'm making sure we're doing that. For signage, some of our conservation lands that are heavily used by people have trails don't really have signs, and other ones have signs that are in really bad shape. So we have brand new signs. They came in last week, and they'll be installed. That money was only $500. Instead of buying the gates for our conservation areas in order to allow still for passive recreation, but not for some of the vandalism and vehicle usage that's illegal, instead of buying them, the DPW has fabricated them in-house, and they are ready to go. Prior to installing them, particularly at the Robbins Pond Conservation Area, which is up in Northwest Harwich, I'm going to be putting in a request to meet with the Board of Selectmen at one of their upcoming meetings in the next couple of weeks, because that does cross a dirt road that, I think it's Northwest Gate Road, East Gate Road. And there's just been a real uptick in illegal activities there upon, working with the police and fire department and DPW, between dumping, partying, fires. There's an issue there. So, but just to let you know, instead of spending $4,000 per gate, I don't know the definite number. I told Highway to let me know the figure, but when they had them done, but they said a very drastic reduction in cost. So I hope to be giving you back some money, and we hope to purchase the rest of the items that we need definitely within the year, if not shorter. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm going to open it up to the board. We're going to start with Robert.
No questions?
Elizabeth.
I'm good. Thanks, Amy.
Kathy.
No questions. Thanks, Amy.
Donna.
No questions. I think it's great you've moved on this project, because certainly our conservation lands have gotten a lot of use this past year with people being outside more. So thank you, Amy.
Mary.
No questions for me. Thank you.
John.
Yeah, no questions. I think this was a great contribution to what conservation does, so thank you.
And I have no questions. Amy, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thanks very much for having me and putting me first. I greatly appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to be in touch. Thank you.
All righty. Moving on. We're going to go, and Jan, please correct me if I'm wrong. Brooks Academy is next. Brooks Free Library.
Library.
Yeah.
Right, Ginny.
Okay, Ginny, you have the floor.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. So the written report I sent you just is very brief and talks about the change since the last report in October, which is 0 because the studio was affected by the pandemic. But first I thought I would just explain, because I know there's been some turnover on the board, and also the public might not know. So the library owns 26 Rogers Group statues. These were created by the sculptor John Rogers, and they're clay and plaster statues that were produced in the mid to late 1800s. And they depict scenes from the Civil War, theater, literature, history, and everyday life. So the library's collection began in 1881 when a local philanthropist donated 40 statues to celebrate the opening of the library, which was the first free public library in town. The Rogers Groups were highly prized, and it was a source of great pride for the community to have this collection, and it remains one of the town's historical and cultural treasures. Eventually, the library owned 69 statues, which was thought to be the second largest collection. But in 1976, the Boston Globe ran a story about the increasing popularity of the Rogers Groups. And after that publicity, thieves broke in and stole 46 of the sculptures. There was a lot of media attention and an intense police investigation, but no trace of the missing statues was ever found. We slowly acquired 13. We had 13 statues left, and we slowly acquired more. There was a period of time when some money was appropriated every year at town meeting to buy another statue. So eventually we had 25 statues. But in 2014, one of the statues entitled Checkers Up at the Farm was recovered. It was found at in a donated box of the treasure chest and was turned over to the library. So we now have 26 statues. When we compared, at the time that Checkers Up at the Farm was recovered, it just generated more interest. And in looking at our photos from before the theft, we realized how much the statues had started to deteriorate. And so we sought and received $23,000 in Community Preservation Act funds in 2015 to restore the collection. That was overly ambitious because we were also preparing for and managing the large historical preservation project on the exterior of the building at the same time, which was completed with CPC funding. Thank you very much. It looks awesome. But the time and attention that project required meant that no action was taken on the Rogers Group project for several years. So the first phase of the project consisted of an assessment and preparation of a conservation treatment plan, which we contracted for in 2018, and we paid just over $3,000 for this work. That was completed in March of 2019, and it detailed the work that was needed on each piece, and that was what was used as the basis of our request for quotes. And one thing that I've reported to you in prior reports is 3 of our 26 statues in the collection were eliminated from the request for quotes at the recommendation of the conservator who prepared the report. 2 are in such poor condition that the conservator recommended just replacing rather than conserving them because they were just too damaged. And a 3rd was eliminated because it's a duplicate. And so this second copy, we are required a lot more extensive treatment. So obviously we're going to do the one that did not need as much work. So in 2019, we awarded the contract for the conservation work on the 23 statues to Skylight Studios. It's a studio in Woburn that's very highly recommended. They arranged for the transportation of the collection to their studio by a fine arts moving company, and they were picked up in December 2019. The original completion date for the work was last September, but as I mentioned before, the studio was shut down by the pandemic and as they were not an essential business. So once they were able to come back into the studio, there were occupancy limits that limited how many people that could be there at the same time. So that was a problem. However, they were back and operating. But the head conservator shared with me that several conservators then contracted severe cases of COVID-19 and were hospitalized. So naturally, with a small staff, they were fairly slow to come back to full-time after this. I don't know all the details, but I know some were impacted by family needs, lack of childcare, or remote schooling, and others didn't return or had limited availability because they're at high risk and they knew what had happened previously. So I've stayed in touch with the contractor and with the conservator, and have agreed with the have agreed with the extensions. We want conservators that are experienced in this type of work on our project, so we're willing to wait. So the conservator reports now that his staff is back in the studio and work is in process, and we have agreed on a new completion date of October 15th. The only expenditure to date is the $3,000 paid for the condition assessment and treatment plan in the first phase. But I do want to correct an error in my written report where I've stated that payment was not due to the conservator until the project is completed. That's incorrect. The contract actually states they were entitled to be paid $4,000 at the start of the contract and the balance at the completion. They've never asked to be paid for any of that $4,000, even though they incurred the initial upfront costs of transportation and insurance. So we have a balance of $19,850 in this account. And our contract with Skylight Studios is for just under that, it's $19,580. So after payment is made to the conservator at the completion of the project, we'll have a balance of $270 to return to CPC. So that's where we are on that. I don't be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to open it up to the board now. I'm going to start with Mary.
No questions from me, David.
Thank you, Mary. John?
No questions. Thank you for the summary, Jenny.
Thank you, John. Robert?
Yeah, I'm glad it's continuing, and we can wait. So thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy?
Thanks, Ginny. Yep, no questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Donna?
No questions. Thank you. The history report was very interesting.
Well, I'm glad I know you see on paper it's a 2015 article, and And like I said, it was overly ambitious in the beginning. Like we should have waited, but we were just so excited to get the statue back. And it was just more, we had to concentrate on the, on the larger building project. And that just took up all the time and attention. So, but they're in good hands. They're insured where they are and safe. So.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Donna. Elizabeth.
I think it's great. Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm all set. Jenny, are there any other board members' questions? We're all set. Jenny, thank you very much for the report.
Can I say one other thing? I just want to let you know that over the years, CPC has funded several projects to digitize the newspapers and, historic newspapers for the town, and they've all been done at this point. But for a lot of years, you had to come in and use the database here. They're now all online. We paid a company a small amount to get all technical on it, but they reconfigured the data so that it can be hosted online, and that's all available. So now they can be seen from any place, wherever you are. So thank you very much. We wouldn't have that available online except CPC paid through multiple projects to get 4 newspapers digitized.
Thank you for that, because I love being able to read the Wall Street Journal now.
Oh, that's the new one. But I'm talking about our historic papers, the Howitch Independent, and goes back to the 1800s all the way up to, from the Howitch Oracle, which was more recent. But anyway, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Again, thank you, Jenny. Okay, moving on. Next up in line is the Bikeways Committee. Paul? You're muted, Paul.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and followers. I'm going to give you a final, basically update on Depot Street projects that was approved for $27,000. They were installed in December 2020, a little bit, maybe 6 months delayed because of COVID. But at that time, our engineer and the DPW basically felt that we didn't need the warning beacons. So we only purchased the 2 warning lights because there was enough sight to see them. And by doing that, the total cost was only $13,992, and we were budgeted for $27,000. So $13,008 is going back to the town or to you guys. That's final on that crossing. Now, what I have also done, and I won't know until June, is that I applied there from Mass Bike Trails. There's a program, there's a grant that I applied for back in January. It's an 80% reimbursement. So I won't know until, like I say, roughly June timeframe, whether I'll be getting some monies back. And I guess my only question to the board is I don't know, did I just notify you guys if I do get it approved? Because it'd be about another, I think it was $12,000 going back, coming back to the town.
Absolutely notification. We never turn money away.
Any questions at all?
I'll open it up to the floor. Can we start with Donna this time?
Thanks. So the bike trails grant, that was just for this one crossing. It isn't for the pending crossing that you have as well.
Right, Donna. Correct.
And is that grant available on an annual basis?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I tried it the year prior and I did not get it. So I figured I'd just reapply it for this one that was approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And Donna, I'll remind you, that's for Howitch consumption only. Kathy, you have the floor.
No, I just applaud your efforts in applying for whatever grants are out there. Good job.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Robert?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Elizabeth?
Great job. And, thank you for going after the grants. It's always nice to get money back. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Mary?
I just want to say thank you for your continued efforts. It's nice to see that we're continuing to make progress on those crossings almost every year. And I concur with my colleagues that, we appreciate the fact that you're seeking the grant funds, because the more we get back, the more we'll have to spend on future projects. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. John?
Yes, nothing additional. I agree with what's been said, so thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. And myself, I'm all set. Paul, thank you very much for coming with your report.
Thank you, David. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, next up on the docket is Chase Library Association. Patricia? You have the floor. You're muted.
All right, I'll try it again. Thank you for having me, and good evening, everyone. I'm happy to report on the progress for the door, restoration for the door at Chase Library. It actually did not get started until about October, because the construction, Andy Schrake of Schrake Construction Company, was working on another project and he wanted to finish that up. And I was concerned about how they were going to do the door over the winter months, but his partner, Jesse, and I apologize, I don't know his last name, has a huge workshop on Sisson Road. So the door was taken off and brought there. And we have an old, just an old door right now at the library. But you've received Andy's report. He's a man of few words. He's brief. He just included the cost of materials to date. I know that the hours that they've put in have been long, I think. But the door was totally disassembled, as he said. It was actually, I think I put in my notes to you that it was the glue, which was made of animal hide, that let go. And then all the joints in the door started to loosen as well. So the door was totally disassembled and scraped and then put back together and tightened. He's taking out the brass deadbolt, which didn't really fit the door. And he's found a new one which doesn't stick out 2 inches. It's a much lower profile. And it will match the original handle on the door. The original handle and lock set has been totally taken apart and greased and reassembled again. He did find that the face plates needed replacing, so he did that. You'll notice from the pictures that I sent that the interior of the door will be natural, and you can see where the old book drop slot used to be on the back of the door. The front of the door will be painted white, and so you won't notice any of that at all. The side lights were totally dismantled and put back together. The glass from the door has been cleaned. It is now back in the door. They've sanded the framework of the door and put on a new, the last time I talked to Andy, they put on a water repellent substance over the raw wood that was exposed. And so they were getting that ready to reinstall the side lights and get ready for painting. The storm door did arrive. And Andy ordered a lock set I thought it was very kind of him. He told me he ordered a lever-handled lock set because it's easier for the elderly to hold on to in the wind. I'm very impressed with his knowledge and his professionalism and the way he and Jesse have approached this project. I think they are really the people who should be doing it. And the door is made of cypress, which is the same as the fireplace inside the library. Andy's hope is to have everything done by May 1st. It kind of gets to be weather related at this point in time, but you know, we may be able to close this out by the end of the fiscal year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Patricia. We're going to open it up. We'll start with Don.
Thank you very much for the pictures. I'm familiar with Mr. Schrake's work, and you're right, it is exceptional. Do you still expect the price that he provided in the beginning to remain the same? I know we put a little buffer of money in there, just not knowing what the conditions would be.
You know, I can't answer it for sure, Donna, but I think the only way the price might go up would be maybe in terms of labor. I think, you know, you have a lot of the materials prices right here, and they're very low. So, you know, unless he underestimated the labor, he didn't have to buy that much that was new. Handle, a lock set, a few face plates, and the storm door, which is already accounted for here. So I'm very hopeful that if it did go over that, it wouldn't go over by a lot.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Donna. Mary. Mary, before you start, Jan, would you please mute your mic?
Me?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Patricia. I'm looking forward to seeing the door. It's going to be wonderful once it's restored to its originals, as best as it can be to the original. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you, Mary.
Elizabeth.
No questions. It's going to be great. Thank you.
Kathy.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to your organization for taking care of such a beautiful Harwich treasure.
Thank you. We view it the same way.
Thanks, Kathy. Robert.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Robert. John.
Well, I love the pictures. It looks like from the pictures, like he does great work. I was impressed. Thank you.
We are as well. So I feel like the door is going to be the crowning glory because we got the 1772 Mass Preservation Grant. So we had the exterior painted. We had the dormer window, which was in worse shape than we thought, all restored and repaired and ready to roll. So by the time we get this new door on, I think it's just going to be absolutely fabulous. Our next big challenge will be dealing with the raccoons who seem to be playing havoc with the roof right now.
I don't disagree with anything you say, madam, but I'm partial to that fireplace.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Anything else from the board members? Hearing none, thank you very much for coming.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, next on the agenda, Berks Academy. Dave Spitz.
Hello, everyone. The report is intentionally brief. I think you already know most of what I have to say. We've received 2 very good reports from the structural engineer, and those were both attached. They include the design of the work on the foundation repairs and the basement excavation. And the second report goes through the entire building and evaluates structural needs that should be addressed further. Those are the things that we'll come back to you at some point for. But right now, we're just focusing on the structural part of it. I think the quality of these 2 reports was very high. If I could, I would offer a contract to, well, you saw the guy last time, the guy from the Maine Woods in the cabin, but he's a very capable structural engineer. However, the cost of the project is such that we do have to go through a formal procurement process. At this point, I think we'll wait to see whether we're okay at town meeting. That's where we're really putting our energy. I was very glad to see that we finally did receive the support from FinCom with a 5-2 vote. I'm confident that we'll do well at town meeting, but that still got us all a little bit nervous. As for dollars and cents, the 2 contracts for the structural engineer came to approximately $15,000. Apparently he hasn't, according to Carol Coppola's report to me, he hasn't billed for everything because we haven't paid for anything. But I'm assuming that we will pay him the full contract amount and that we will still have $115,000 left to apply to the actual design and construction work. And that's also the same number that I gave to you in our application for funding a few months ago. I don't have a whole lot else to tell you, but I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, thank you, David. I'm going to open it up to the board. We'll start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you've changed positions again.
Yes, I apologize. A friend of mine was on television, so I was sort of watching out of the corner of my eye. But I was listening, I promise. I'm really pleased with the studies and the way they look. I'm going to use this opportunity, if anyone's watching, to plug this project in the name of our beloved Peggy Rose. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Bob.
David, did you have any further information on the grants that you applied for?
We are still waiting to hear from the Cultural Council. We ended up not applying for the historic grant. There was a requirement for a conservation easement to be placed on the property, and I didn't catch that until it was really too late in the game to make sure that the town was comfortable with that requirement. So we will look to that group again, but not until next year.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy.
No questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Donna.
Sorry. No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Mary.
Nothing from me right now, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. John.
Yeah, I just have a comment that the reports did look rather thorough, which gives me confidence that you're on the right track, and no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. David, thank you very much for coming.
Okay. Thank you for allowing it to be brief.
All righty. Okay, next up, Habitat for Humanity. Vicki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this meeting. It's been fascinating listening to all of the other applications and the huge agenda you have. My name's Chris Doran. I am the grant writer for CPC and liaison with Habitat on several other things. So I wanted to update you to several things that are not in the report. I don't know how much all of you know, but we are building 6 homes in Harwich on what is known as Murray Lane, 2 3-bedroom capes, 2 2-bedroom ranches, and 2 3-bedroom ranches. Due to several delays that were out of our control, such as the relocation of a utility pole, we were at the mercy of Eversource and Verizon. And it took, from the month that we submitted the request, it took almost 15 months for them to relocate the pole. We also, the existing owner of the land, it was understood and agreed to that they would relocate a tenant in what was one of the existing buildings on the property and demolish it. That was, again, something that was out of our control. We were at the mercy of this individual and their company and their subcontractors. That has obviously finally been done. And then, of course, COVID hit. So we are rarely at all ever behind schedule, but those things did put us behind schedule from the original agreement. But we're underway now. We're underway. Water is in, electric is in. We still have 2 slabs to pour. Pouring sonar tubes for the porches. We are going full steam ahead. We, because of the delay, we are looking at now wall raisings as opposed to last summer to this summer, June wall raisings. And we are keeping our fingers crossed that with everyone getting vaccinated, many of our seniors and many of our volunteers are seniors, and they really kick in at wall raising and after. So we're hoping that that timing really works out well, that many of our seniors, senior volunteers will have been vaccinated and feel safer. We are still adhering to all COVID protocols on site, and we will continue to do that, but we hope to have more people than we've experienced over the past year on site helping us out with construction. So we're looking at a wall raising, the 6 wall raisings in June, and COs, certificates of occupancy and sales, June, July of 2022. So I'll come back to that a little bit later. We did receive the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston grant, which was $180,000. We have not drawn on that yet, but we are getting ready to. We received the construction grant from CPC. Thank you for $300,000, and we have about $150,000 remaining of that. And now that we're deep into the foundations and getting ready for real hard construction, you'll see some requests from that grant coming soon. And then we also received a construction loan from Cape Cod 5, and we are drawing down on that. And that it was $540,000, which will be paid off once all the homes are sold. We use the sale proceeds to pay off our construction loan. Private fundraising has been a challenge, as you can imagine, because of COVID. Many of our corporate donors and grantors started to divert some funds to COVID relief issues over the last year and or decrease their funding to us. What's been confirming is that many of our individual donors have continued to donate, and we've just been surprisingly, we're doing well. We're still below where we probably were, but under the circumstances, we're doing well. And we are looking at, usually at wall raisings, as that's when the community really sees what's going on. And as people see the shovel in the ground and things happening, we are, again, keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be able to reach out to more individual civic organizations, faith-based organizations, corporate donors, private foundations, and so forth. Let's see, there's something else. Oh, so we opened up applications and that closed in December. And we had, for 6 homes, 58 applications. So it just never ceases to amaze me how big the need is. And to have 58 applications for 6 homes, it just goes to show you what great work you do in supporting us and other affordable housing in your town. The selection of those families will take place at the end of the month on April 29th. So that is where we are. One of the things that I wasn't sure how to handle it, because as I said, we are rarely ever behind. We usually bring in our homes on budget and on time. I will echo what Amy and some other folks have said. The price of lumber, the price of cabinets and vanities, the price of concrete has just gone up. I'm not asking for any more money though. But what I would, I want to handle, we can handle this offline, but the $300,000 construction loan was approved at town meeting, and just, shoot, I think it was, there we go, May 8th, 2018. And I'm in Florida right now. I don't have all the documents in front of me, but I believe it was initially a 3-year completion timeframe. There may have been some language in it or that we can have an extension. But as you can see all along, what the delays have been, and our past reports have explained those delays. I just don't know what we need to do logistically or documentation-wise to make sure that we're all on the same page and we have a letter, a document, an amendment of some sort, just explaining and allowing an extension on time. But that's where we are. And just to say, we have homes. We had family applications open up for a project in Falmouth, and 10 homes received 66 applications. So it doesn't end. So thank you for your support. And that would be my only question right now. And again, we can take it offline. Is just how we might handle the documentation. So that's it.
Okay, Christine, I want to apologize for misidentifying you. The first name I looked at on my other screen was a little bit different, so there we go. As far as the time extension, I'll be in touch. We'll have a discussion. I don't perceive that with the board as a problem. So I'm going to open it up to the board, to the floor. John Ketchum.
Yeah, I just have one question about costs, and we've heard tonight, and I've certainly heard before, that prices of things like lumber have gone way up. But I've also heard that people expect, as the COVID crisis eases, that things will go back to something closer to normal. I'm just wondering if that, if your planning reflects an expectation like that.
John, no, we don't. And if it does happen, it won't happen within this time frame. We don't think there's such a delay on everything that I don't see. Our director of construction doesn't see a decrease in prices until timing and inventory and stock and everything gets caught up, and it's not happening. So.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
All right, John, thanks. Mary.
Thank you, David. Nothing from me. I guess I just would say, I think, COVID being what it was, it obviously was going to delay almost all of our projects. So it's not surprising to me that you're not necessarily on time with this project. It's the nature of the beast for everyone right now.
Thank you, Mary. Elizabeth.
Just great job with these houses. I mean, it's an impossible time to be trying to get a project like this done, so I commend you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Robert.
Yeah, great work. Like supporting you. So other than that, no questions.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy.
Yeah, just wanted to say kudos to the organization. I did visit the site off of Tubman this fall, right before everyone got in, and it was a great job. It was a great job, and those families are just going to be so happy there. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. We're just closing on those homes now. We've even had delays with USDA, who provides the mortgage financing. So Eversource, Verizon, the people living on our site, COVID, USDA, it's just, and we're thrilled that we're still moving forward and at the point that we are. Thank you.
You're searching for the word nightmare.
Thank you, Chris. I especially want to thank you for providing the statistics on applications. It's really important that we have data that demonstrates the need and supports our housing efforts. I have a similar issue with Eversource on my Brewster Woods project, so I feel for you. It's very challenging. And I definitely support the time extension and the work that Habitat does in the community is even more critical now. So thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
It's a great project.
We're thrilled. We're excited. I'll make sure, Jan, I will definitely send the invitation when we have the exact wall raising date, because of course we'd love for you all to attend if you can. We're hoping it won't be virtual. That's been another thing. I cannot commend our team enough, both our staff and our credit counseling volunteers, who typically meet with the applicants in person, and everything was done virtually. Home visits, interviews, follow-up interviews, on and on and on. We've had home dedications and wall raisings. Well, the wall raisings, there are physical people there putting up the walls, but we've invited people virtually. So we're hoping, again, with everyone being safe and vaccinated, we can get out of the virtual world a little bit, and we'll let you know if it's a virtual wall raising by invitation or physical, but I'll let you know as soon as possible.
Okay, that sounds great. Will you forward the extension number to Jan so I can access it, and I'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much for your time, for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on. Next is the Howitch Housing Authority. Tracy?
Hi, I'm coming. Oh, hold on. There I am. Can you see me?
Can't see you, but can hear you.
Sorry. Hi.
Go.
Hello. Mine very brief. Don't have much to report because we just got the money, not at the beginning of the year. So thank you very much for the money. Obviously, we had a lot of we had a big wait list when we went into this, but we sort of exhausted the wait list, not completely, but when we got the money, we began to go through our wait list, and what we found was that because of COVID, there was actually a lot of money out there for rental assistance. There was emergency rental assistance, and especially in Chatham and Harwich, and also through HAC and through RAFT and stuff like that. So what we're finding now is that money is beginning to dry up, and so now we're getting ever more applications. Kate I think she's got 4 people currently. That's my colleague. She does the processing. She's got 4 families currently that are receiving a subsidy, and then a number in the mill that she's processing right now. So we're fully expecting that we're gonna, we'll get everybody, we'll get all the slots filled. I just think it's going to be a little bit longer this time than it normally is. Normally we have people literally like waiting in the wings, and this time we're doing a little marketing. She's doing flyers in the backpacks at Monomoy Middle School and that kind of thing, and it's really word of mouth. A lot of people are telling friends that that this money is now available. So we're fully expecting it to take off within the next few months. But thus far, we have 4 families involved, and we're just expecting it to go on as it always does, where the just run-of-the-mill families that can't quite make their rent, again, the rents continue to go up, obviously, are able to use the money, and I'm very grateful for the additional funding this year. So that's about it. There's not much more to report, really.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We'll start with Donna.
Hi, Tracy, thanks. I agree with you. Right now, a lot of people are using what we call RAFT, rental assistance for families in transition, and also what we call IRMA, but for the public, it's emergency rental and mortgage assistance. Right. And those are really right now, targeted towards paying back rent, whereas this rental assistance program is an ongoing program. And I think it's really important to have that continued assistance. Next year, you're going to really have to look at, the people who come off of those 2 state and federal subsidies, and potentially see if there's more of a need that we need to support in the Harwich community. And I'm glad to hear that you're working with Housing Assistance Corporation, who's our regional administrator for the rental program. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Donna. Kathy?
No questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Robert?
No questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Elizabeth?
No questions. I'm so proud of Tracy. Love you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Mary?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. John?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions from...
You're muted, David.
Tracy, thank you very much for coming and giving us...
Thank you, David. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Cemetery Department, Robin Kelly. Robin, you have the floor.
Thank you. So this is an update on our 2020 Article number 30, which is the Pine Grove Cemetery Gravestone and Conservation and Preservation Project. I had finally gotten a meeting with Griffin and Megan to go over the procurement checklist in the description of services and the procurement method, which is going to be 30B. So all of our documents were put together and they sent me back a revised and completed invitation for bid and contract. We were reviewing that. Griffin is out on vacation this week. So when he gets back on Monday, if he has the opportunity on Monday, he'll be putting it out to bid. But we're just waiting for that. So it's all ready to go. All the paperwork has been completed. He just has to review the contract language before it goes out to bid. This project is at the Pine Grove Cemetery in West Howitch. It's 147 memorials that are going to be clean and consolidated, but it's 116 monuments that are going to have foundation repairs or to be reset, and 23 monuments that are actually broken. And there are 8 large memorials that will be cleaned and consolidated there. So I'm very excited about this project, as a lot of people in West Howitch are as well. Does anybody have any questions? You're muted, David.
I'm muted. We'll open up to the floor. We'll start with Mary, please.
Thanks, David. No questions for me, Robin.
Thank you, Mary. John?
Yeah, thank you. No questions, Robin. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Elizabeth?
No questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Robert?
Thank you, Robin. No questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Kathy?
No questions. Just I think it's great that we're doing something in West Harwich to contribute to their historical projects, I guess.
Thank you, Kathy. Donna?
Well, somebody must like you, Robin, because your project's getting moved forward and we have ones from 2018 still in the queue. So
I did a lot of background work to get it pushed in there.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We're all set. Robin, thank you very much for your report. Okay, moving on. Heinz Pfaff, Howitch Natural Resource Director. Heinz, are you there?
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
All right, thank you. Good evening to everyone. Heinz Pfaff, Natural Resources Director. I did submit kind of a written summary. Hopefully you have that in front of you. If not, I can walk you through that as well. This is regards to the Article 57, the Hinckley's Pond Remediation and Public Access Project. It was grouped together in terms of the request, and I should say that I've been on since the beginning of your meeting, so I did hear Amy's comments, and I'll circle back to that at the end of my summary here about her and her budget and available funds. As far as the treatment of the pond and project summary and the current condition of the pond, that written summary was submitted to you guys. The $650,000 initially was set up such that $500,000 was going to be treatment of the pond, $75,000 for monitoring, and then $75,000 public access. And it's just odd that there are two numbers there, both $75,000. But when we went out for the bidding of the treatment portion and monitoring, we quickly found out that we were able to get things done at a lower cost. So then basically we looked at a combination of pond treatment monitoring of $550,000 and still the $75,000 for public access. So even at that point, as we began the project, we were going to come in under the budget of that initial project budget amount of $650,000. I have a summary of the committed expenses there. The treatment itself, the $347,300, that was done successfully in September of 2019. Treatment was wrapped up in a few weeks, but monitoring is something that was a requirement placed on the project by the Conservation Commission in order of conditions. And they requested 3 years of monitoring, but we didn't lump it all together in the cost because I was a proponent that it should cost us a little less, hopefully, each year based upon the results of that monitoring. And in fact, that somewhat has taken place. The pre-treatment and the first year monitoring, that was $37,000. And then the second year, which is 2021, will be $15,876. So I know the CPC is interested in a few questions. One would be, will there be money returned? The answer is yes. But when and how much is a little bit gray, because based upon this second year of monitoring, what's going to be required for the third year in terms of its cost. And I know someone would ask, well, why would you stop monitoring after 3 years? It's not that we're going to stop monitoring, but the cost placed upon the CPC would end in terms of monitoring, because Harwich Natural Resources has a much, much, much smaller water quality monitoring program, and Hinckley's has always been a part of it prior to this project and will continue afterwards. So I will be able to encompass that within my budget, because we do it in a smaller time frame and not to the extent that was required for these 3 years of Hinckley's Pond. It has been a success. The pond is still in great condition. It will be for many, many years to come. So as you can see there, I have the remaining balance left of $245,000 there. And then the $75,000 that Amy has access to as part of this big project she did allude to, what those exact costs are, I don't think she knows yet. What if it runs over that $75,000? I don't think I'm allotted to grant, award, give, manage any of that in excess. It would have to come from CPC to give her the okay to do so. But there is money under the Hinckley's Pond Remediation and Public Access Project that would be left to do that if there was an overrun of sorts with that portion of her land side, and there would still be money being returned to CPC. So I think I've kind of given a quick summary here. I'll answer any questions that you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start with John.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Heinz.
Hi, John.
Thanks for that report. And I did notice, reading through the report, that there was a significant uptick in the fall, which in the report it said a significant uptick in aluminum, I think, which isn't a major concern, but also in phosphorus, and a significant decrease in the Secchi disk readings, which in the report, it was correlating that with the end of the cranberry harvest and release of water from the cranberry bogs. So I'm just wondering to what extent that's a concern, and whether you were really anticipating that happening, and given that happened, whether there's a case for more vigilance and an enhanced testing program in the out years, particularly if something similar happens this year toward the end of the season.
It's a good question. My immediate answer to that would be, that's why more than one month is being sampled. In fact, that first year included a winter sample, and then this is May through October. And, the adage of, timing's everything. So at that time that he did that fall sample, had it occurred, 2 days after or 2 days before of that kind of culmination of, I think, like you said, a bog use of the water and returning and something else. So I guess to be determined would be the correct answer at this point, meaning let's see how 2021 comes, and does that same event take place in the fall? I know one of the 2 bogs at Hinckley's Pond is going to be retired, I guess is the word, Howitch Conservation Trust. And so the use of the water of the pond and any kind of reclamation of that being put back, the pressure on the pond from that perspective will be reduced, which is a good thing. And I think you also said that's something I would have anticipated. I would not have anticipated that based upon the treatment and the concentration that was used on the pond. The initial results immediately were good, and that first year of getting into all those parameters they check fall within, their success model. But outward years, that's to be determined. And I think anything that takes place with such strength, meaning the pendulum, after we've gone decades, that initial treatment swung the pendulum all in one direction. And I would think that there'll be somewhat of a little bit back, maybe not, obviously not to what the original condition was, but that initial kind of application was a big movement of the pond's basic ecological equilibrium and dynamics. I don't think it would remain at that peak. It's got to come back somewhat. I don't know what somewhat is or how far, but that might be playing into kind of your question as well, is, where's that kind of final resting spot of the pond? Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Mary.
Thanks, David. Nothing for me at this time. Thanks, Heinz.
Thank you, Mary.
Donna.
Nope, that was a very thorough report, and I have no questions. Thank you, Heinz.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Kathy.
I just wanted to say that you're right in your assumption that you just can't reallocate the monies. The warrant article was very specific in how the monies were to be allocated, and that cannot be changed. It might come down to maybe a few things won't be able to be purchased for the public access part of the project, like the bike kiosk or something like that. But we can't just reallocate the funds.
Thank you, and I completely understand that, and I just wanted to make that clear so that, because Amy and I work and discuss this project from time to time, that I know that that it's not something that I would, accept an invoice for or get involved with in anything. It's basically, her baby, and I'll leave it at that, and she can work with CPC. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Robert.
No additional questions, just a comment from someone who has a little land on the pond there and has reported that it is a much nicer pond and conditions are fantastic now. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Elizabeth.
No questions. Thank you for taking good care of our ponds.
Duly noted. You're welcome.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And Kathy, thank you for clearing that air. I should have done it earlier, but that's okay. I'm sure Amy will get the message. Okay, Heinz, thank you very much for coming. Appreciate the information. Moving on. Next thing I have on the docket is the town of Howitch, town administrator, but I don't think there's anybody on for that, and I know Joe's on vacation. He did send in the information. I hope it was distributed. Okay, all right, moving on. Pleasant Bay Community Boating. Ken, are you there? Yes, you are.
I am.
You have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I sent in a fairly brief report. The good news, there is no bad news. The good news is we're well on, if you've been by our campus on Route 28, you can see we're well underway. The handicapped accessible drop-off area has been excavated and all the drainage is in, and we were expecting the hardscape to start this week, but our provider, his wife has had a medical emergency, so he's postponed until next week. But following that will be the fencing, landscape, and paving. The work around the boathouse is substantially complete. All the pilings are in for the permanent pier, and the deck is going on now. We expect the permanent pier to be done by the end of this month. And we also expect the hardscape to be done and into the other landside work that I just mentioned in early May. So then the final piece is the dock, the floats and the gangway, which are scheduled to arrive May 10th. So bottom line is we should have it all done by Memorial Day. That's our goal. And in the interest of the hour, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ted. We'll start with Elizabeth.
No questions. I did happen to drive by there yesterday and it's looking good. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Donna.
Okay, my only question is there a plan to put any signage thanking the various CPC committees, because this was a multi-town effort, and just also kind of memorializing some public access?
Yeah, there will be signage that says that we're open to the entire community. Well, there is now, but we will also put it down by the dock. And we hadn't thought about giving credit to at the site. Clearly, we are going, as we finish out the campus, we're going to have what we call a donor wall for all the people who've helped us with this immense and amazing project. But yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we can figure out some sort of a little accommodation for CPCs to acknowledge their contribution to the dock. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Donna, good point. All the CPCs enjoy having their projects acknowledged, all the CPCs. Moving on, Robert.
I also think it's important to acknowledge the regional aspect of it. So that's it. Sorry.
Robert.
Yeah, congratulations on getting this wrapped up for the summer season. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy.
Actually, the part about signage is in our guidelines in the application. That request that there be some kind of signage. In addition to that, great article in the Chronicle today about the pier. And Ted, you had mentioned to me maybe a year ago when we met at the site that there was going to have to be some extensive training of your staff with regards to the new pier and some of the other things that would be available. And so what's the time frame for that with regard to the opening by Memorial Day?
Well, the pier is going to be done by Memorial Day, but our programs don't start until middle of June. Certainly none of the youth programs. We are taking the adaptive part of our program development in baby steps, as you might understand. It's one safety level is required for our general activities. Now you start putting people with disabilities in boats, it raises the bar for safety. Having said that, we're having Betsy Allison, who's frankly a world-class sailor, but also runs the adaptive program for U.S. Sailing, is bringing a staff out the end of June, and we're doing a 3-day comprehensive adaptive instructor program with some of our instructors. And so the idea is for it to be a train-the-trainer operation, so those instructors can train other instructors. Having said that, we're really going to start kind of slowly this year in terms of people, who are actually in wheelchairs. What this will do, though, is it enables us, people like, we have programs with the councils on aging, and a lot of seniors. And we didn't do that last year with COVID, but we expect most of them will be vaccinated this year, so we can pick that up again. Now, a lot of those seniors had a lot of trouble with our rickety old springy dock, but this will be easy. And even if they're mobile to the point where they can get down there with a walker or a cane or something like that, this will be a lot easier for them. So there's certainly the more severely disabled people, we're going to be making sure that we get the proper training and staffing and being very careful. But then there's sort of the fringe people who will benefit from the greater stability and room of the dock will we'll also be able to put it right away. And the other bonus, of course, is we got our fingers crossed that the Friend of Pleasant Bay, the floating classroom that the Friends of Pleasant Bay have made possible for us, will finally be certified by the Coast Guard next month. That's also a handicap enabled vessel, and we can put 6 wheelchairs on it. So that's another opportunity to get people out on the water for more like marine science, marine education, environmental stewardship purposes. So people who are on wheelchairs, just, so many of them really don't have a way to get out on the water. So if they don't want to go kayaking, they don't want to go sailing, but they just want to get out on the bay for other purposes, we can accommodate them there. So a lot of those activities really don't require the intensive adaptive program training that the more athletic programs do.
All right, well, thank you. Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Robert, did I get you? Okay, Elizabeth?
You got me already. No questions.
It's getting late. I'm losing track. Mary?
Thanks, David. Congratulations on all the progress you've made. I'm looking forward to seeing it. The only thing I'd like to point out with the signage is that really helps us with the community education portion for what we are and what our funds do. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. And I apologize for overlooking it from the original application. So thank you for the reminder.
Thank you, Mary. John?
Yes, thank you. I've been by a few times and it looks like great progress. The permanent pier looks like it'll be a nice, rock solid piece of work. So thank you. It looks good.
Thank you, John. And my only comment is, I think it's an outstanding process you're going through. So I'm very happy with what's happening down there. And I just hope at some point, Luiano shows up so I can take it out races. Moving on. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your information.
Thank you all very much for your support. We appreciate it, and we all hope you'll come sailing with us this summer, or paddling, or out on the Friend of Pleasant Bay.
All right. Thank you. Moving on. Howitch Recreational Services, Eric Beebe. Eric, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'll be very brief on these. I have like 6 in a row, I believe. So I'll start off with the 2018 Article 54, which was the Brooks Park Expansion Phase 5, which included the new lights for the facility. As you know, we're awaiting the approval of the additional $125,000 to fund the project that you had approved this winter. And we're waiting for the money to be approved at town meeting. So that we can go ahead and start the project. The engineering and design has already been done. So once we have the additional funding, we should be able to move forward pretty quickly.
Do we want to take them one at a time? Go ahead, John. Robert's saying no. You want to hear them all?
I can do them all, yeah. You're muted again, Dave.
Go ahead, Eric. You have the floor.
Okay. The next one is 2019 Article 44, which is the White House field improvements. The scoreboard, which is $55,000. The scoreboard is moving forward. Finally, it's on order. We're waiting for it to be delivered. In the meantime, the Highway Department has been working diligently to set up the connections. So when it does arrive, it could just be put right in and be put right to use for the Mariners season and the varsity baseball season. So that should be up sooner than later. 2019 Article 43 is the Sampon restroom replacement. The draft of the RFP was just finished and sent over to town administration and town engineer for their final review before it goes out to bid. We're hoping once that does go out to bid, the actual time for it to be put in is usually pretty quick because it's a precast concrete facility that they just drop in at the location. But everything else is ready there. The septic design has been ready, and the engineering for that as well. 2019 Article 40, lifeguard stands at town beaches. That was for 11 new lifeguard stands at all the beaches that we do have lifeguards at. This is the highway department. We're relying on them to do the construction of all those stands. The money funded was just for materials. The cost of the project probably would have been about double that if we were to fund the construction as well. So far the highway department has completed one of those stands for Earl Road Beach. They plan to have probably 3 more before this summer, before we open up this summer. We were prepared for it to be a progress over time. They are very busy, and like I said, we're saving a lot of money by them doing it. I'll keep moving on. 2020, Article 33 is the White House Field Lighting Project. I'm happy to report that's also moving forward. We, on Tuesday night, the Board of Selectmen voted to approve the bid from Robert B. Auer for the installation of the lights. The lights have been ordered. All the materials are ready to go. This was the last step. So now that bid has been approved, that's going to move forward, and we're hoping to have those. The goal is to have those up and ready by Mariner season, which is in about 2 months or so. There is strict guidelines on timeliness and the time limit in the RFPs and contracts that went out. So we're looking forward to that getting done very soon as well. And lastly, 2020 Article 34 is the Brooks Park Field, baseball field fencing. That one, I've sent over all specifications for the fencing that is needed, as well as procurement checklists to the town engineer and town administration for them to formulate an RFP. So we're just awaiting that. And as you all know, there is quite a backlog of projects at Town Hall right now, just because of sheer volume and, other extenuating circumstances that delayed things. So we're moving ahead on quite a few projects, and we're looking forward to getting them done. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of those.
Okay, I'm going to open it up now to the board. Thank you, Eric. We'll start with John Ketchum.
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mary?
Thanks, David. Thanks, Eric. Glad to see that you're able to start making some progress on some of your procurement issues. I'm looking forward to seeing the projects move forward. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mary. Elizabeth?
I'm just looking forward to June 20th, the season starts. Yay.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Where am I, Robert?
Yeah, on the Sand Pond restroom, is that going to get done for the summer, before the summer, do you think?
That's the hope and the goal. We'd like to have it done for this summer season. Like I said, once that RFP goes out, it should be a really quick process to get the actual bathroom put in. So the ultimate goal is to have it done for this summer.
Although you have to redo the septic system, right?
The septic has to be redone as well, yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be tight, but we're shooting for it.
Okay. And on the lifeguard stands, have you already bought all the lumber?
Yeah, all the lumber's been bought, and it's over at the highway barn. So they're just building them little by little when they have time in between other projects.
Okay, so it sounds like you probably will have sufficient money then to finish that.
Yeah, we're gonna have sufficient money. I'm awaiting a balance on what's remaining from the highway department. We're not ready to return it just yet. We want to make sure there's no last minute items we need for any of the construction. Yeah.
And remind me, how many total stands are you going to get done?
There's 11.
Wow. Gee, when do you think you'll get the others done? Because the rate's pretty slow here. It looks like another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, well, that's all up to the highway department. We did a similar project with the beach stairways a couple years ago. And they like this one, they started slow and they picked it up as they went. So we're hoping by next summer we'll have at least most, if not all of them done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Kathy?
Yeah, my concern is mostly about the lifeguard stands also. I mean, you came to us in 2018 with the request and the lifeguard stands were in dire need of replacing. Safety was an issue. And now we've got one rebuild with maybe a couple more to start the season. And I mean, safety was such an issue. We're going into another summer season. You know, maybe having them made someplace else would be another option or something to look into. I mean, I'm concerned. I mean, this was like dire need.
Well, I never said it was dire. I said there was safety issues, but we were trying to be look ahead to the future of there's certain ones that are in worse condition than others. So there is a priority list that went to the highway department. So we have to rely on them to put them together when they can. That's all I can say. I'm not constructing them myself.
All set, Kathy? Thank you, Kathy. Donna?
Yeah, just on that, I wonder if you might be able to get some AmeriCorps volunteers to help with the construction of those lifeguard stands. It can be overseen by, you know, Town of Harwich staff. Just an idea. And on the Sampon, I mean, you're going to be really tight on getting this done for this summer. I mean, an invitation for bid goes out. You're talking, you know, 3 weeks, a month before you're even contracting. So I think at some point, you're going to have to make a choice on, you know, if you're going to be able to move forward with that. But I mean, where that location is, I mean, you could probably, except for the septic, does the septic go out into the parking lot or does it go to the other side of that building, of the little restroom building there?
It goes to the other side of it.
Yeah, so you could potentially do it during the season. I mean, it wouldn't be a perfect scenario, but.
Yeah, we're prepared if that came to that it could be done. We could always put in a portable facility there. If and while work would be done in the summer. But we're going to shoot for it and see where we can get.
All right. Well, good luck with that, Eric.
All right. And I have no questions. Any other questions from the board? All right. Eric, thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
And moving on. Next on the docket is the Community Development Partnership. Ann Robinson?
Yes, thank you. As everybody else has already stated, we were impacted by the pandemic and weren't able to hold an in-person housing institute last fall, so we decided instead to do individual trainings throughout the first 6 months of 2021. So we held two this winter, Housing 101, which covered the basics of affordable housing, and then a more advanced training on the RFP process, which discussed the best practices for putting out RFPs. We also had another training last week on how affordable housing trusts and affordable housing committees could best collaborate and work together. And there'll be a couple more trainings before the end of this fiscal year. For the peer groups, which had been meeting quarterly, as a result of COVID, we decided to have meetings on a monthly basis. So both the outer and lower K peer groups were meeting as one group monthly to discuss the implications of COVID and how best to deal with it. And we recently went back to having our quarterly meetings separately. So we have winter lower and outer Cape peer group meetings, and last week also held spring peer group meetings. We continue to put out our monthly housing newsletter that goes out to almost 500 municipal officials and staff. And well, we've managed to keep up our programs despite the limitations of not being able to meet in person. Be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Ann. We'll start with John Ketchum.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Mary.
Thanks, David. No questions from me, Ann.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
I have no questions. You just have my eternal gratitude because I sort of dove into the housing pool late, and Andrea and your programs have been fabulously educational and have helped me tremendously. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
That's quite an endorsement. Robert.
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Donna.
The only question I had, Ann, was I was looking for statistics of how many people from Harwich participate in some of these programs. I know this was something we talked about last year in trying to boost participation. I attend quite a few of your offerings. They are excellent. The one last week, which was how CPCs, housing committees, and housing trusts can work best together, was really, really good offering. And I want to thank some of my CPC fellow members who I have seen attending these offerings, but I think I'd love to see the statistics, and I'd love to get more people in Harwich, particularly people who make decisions around housing, attending these, because they're incredibly valuable.
Yeah, we can obviously get you that information. That's not a problem. And things that we did this year is rather than doing a printed brochure we have in the past that we've distributed to select boards and had the opportunity to go actual presentation to them this year to do a short video about the programs that we do. So that's available for select boards or any committee that would like to view it. Either it can be shown at a committee meeting or it's also available on our website. And the link was in the report. But sure, I'll send an update to the committee on how many participants we've had from the town.
Can I just add one thing to that?
No.
Just wanted to say that I think one of the things that would help increase participation is if I have the opportunity to get in front of you again to get your input on what you'd like to see in the Housing Institute next year. So I'd welcome the opportunity to have that conversation with you all.
I want to echo Donna's thoughts and suggest that the Affordable Trust join these meetings as well. I haven't seen any of their people on there. And occasionally I see one person from our housing committee. So I would like to put out there that, you know, the CPC is doing their part, the other should do theirs. Thank you.
Well, and I will say that I have been taking all of your flyers and sending them to CPC members. And again, they've been great at attending your offerings and some of the offerings that Mass Housing Partnership have had this year. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I have a question, Ann.
Sure.
Do any of your seminars go on YouTube?
We have been on YouTube. We've been taking them recently, and they are available on our website, but we haven't put them on YouTube.
Is there a particular reason why?
You're asking the wrong person. I am so tired of lying. Andrea could probably better tell.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, it's not proprietary information.
No, we make it available. It's just that we haven't done it through YouTube.
Right.
It's on the website. You can go. I've done it for things when I wanted to look up something that I couldn't remember. I hopped on their website and looked at a section. You can see the programs.
Okay.
Yeah, our offerings are free. So anytime anybody wants to, and we record them, so anytime anyone wants them, or sometimes people will play them at a future meeting, we're happy to share that. And like they said, we post it on our website. I think right now, the best thing to do is to register for something so that you get the follow-up materials where the recording is always included. And we also tend to include the recordings in our monthly e-newsletter as well. So we want to get the information out to everybody.
And I understand the point of view. I'm just suggesting a little different mechanism in order to provide to a wider audience for those who are not going to go into a specific website at a specific time or to download information. YouTube is a wonderful vehicle to get information. That's all, just a suggestion.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that suggestion. And I'll let our technical people deal with that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board members? Hearing none. Ann, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next on the docket is Howitch Affordable Housing Trust.
Hi, so I'm going to be just presenting a couple remarks, and then Don Howell, who's the chair of the trust, is here to answer any questions that you may have. So yes, I'm Andrea Aldana. In addition to working at the CDP as a director of housing advocacy, I'm wearing the hat of having a contract with the town to provide housing coordinator services. And obviously I work directly with the chair of the trust. Our scope of work includes providing referral services to people who need housing, staffing the Affordable Housing Trust, monitoring the town's subsidized housing inventory, and other special projects as needed. And I'm not going to review the whole report that was submitted, but I want to provide just a little more context. So last year, the Affordable Housing Trust prioritized two primary activities. So the first activity was developing an action plan with help from a consultant who specializes in community planning and community engagement. Her name is Jennifer Goldson. And for those of you who may not be aware, an action plan is a document that prioritizes housing production strategies based on local needs as the data identifies them. And it outlines a specific role of the trust, including which initiatives it will focus on and how the trust will operate. And so it's typically something that's done when a trust is fairly young, fairly new. And crucially, it includes community engagement with boards and committees within the town, especially the CPC, as well as Harwich residents and other partners. And the resulting plan includes guidelines for how the trust will steward trust funds, as well as an application package that reflects those guidelines. And finally, the plan outlines the trust funding priorities, including eligible funding activities and selection criteria. So it includes a 5-year budget and fundraising strategy to accomplish the trust goals. And then the second activity was developing a request for proposals, known as an RFP, to develop a small-scale set of homes on the parcel on Sisson Road that includes the Harwich Junior Theater. And just as an aside for anyone who may be watching, the theater is not going to be touched and has expressed support for the project. So this activity is being conducted with a technical assistance grant from Massachusetts Housing Partnership, as most municipalities in the state do, and that's also known as MHP. And in order to develop an RFP, the trust first needs to conduct a set of feasibility studies to determine whether the site is suitable for housing and how much housing the site can hold. This information is included in the RFP. In order for the town to communicate housing needs that the site must meet, as well as provide information for developers to respond to. And an important piece of information that the trust wants to include is about preferences from residents that will be collected through community engagement. And in addition to community engagement, there is a set of what are called pre-development tasks needed to determine site feasibility. For this particular site, MHP determined that soil testing is needed, and they offered to manage that process. And due to backlogs during COVID, MHP didn't get a quote for that service until recently in February. And soil testing is apparently not typically done during the winter, so that piece is pending as well. So you'll notice that both of these activities really rely on community engagement to move forward, and that's an activity that's usually conducted in person. It doesn't have to be, but that's usually how it's done and how it's most impactful. And so last year, the trust decided to pause community engagement work due to COVID until it can be conducted in person. And so this pause has meant that the action plan and the Sisson Road RFP have been temporarily paused. But now, as people are getting vaccinated and restrictions are beginning to lift, the trust is planning on discussing a restart of these activities at their next meeting. But still, the housing crisis has only been exacerbated by COVID, and the trust can't cease all activity. It's important to continue to build its funds to be ready to move a development forward when the time comes. So for a small project like Sisson Road that won't have the benefit of receiving the low-income tax credit, which is a funding source that makes up a large portion of the development budget for larger projects, the trust needs to be prepared to invest in the project to ensure high-quality design and that fits within a historic district. And so during the performance period for this report, the trust has had to balance limitations due to COVID, as well as preparing to meet the housing needs of your residents. And the trust intends to ensure that it's well funded to respond to opportunities that are on the horizon and set itself up for success to accomplish the goals that will be identified in the action planning process. And the trust very much looks forward to working with the CPC and getting your input as part of that action planning process. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up for questions from the board. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to know that you're working with us because you're brilliant. I'm incredibly frustrated with the lack of communication between all the various housing groups in Harwich, and hopefully now that you're working with us, that will improve. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth. Robert.
The only question I have is just in general with the housing trust is that I don't see a lot of minutes or anything posted. Maybe this isn't the right forum to bring that up, but I'm just not finding information on what's going on.
Noted.
And that's it for me.
Kathy.
No questions, thanks.
Thanks, Kathy. Donna.
Good evening. Hi. I want to thank you for the very thorough written report that you submitted. That was very helpful. I did note in it that there appeared in a few of the months reports to be about 10 or under resident inquiries or resident served. This is something I've been kind of talking about for a while now on the CPC, that I think it's important that somehow we boost the number of residents that might need assistance, particularly because of COVID, because we all know that the housing situation has been exasperated. So that's something that I would love to see more work being done on. Specifically for the trust, I would like to know how much of the CPC funding that has been provided since the trust came into inception has actually been spent. I don't believe that we've received a financial component of funds that have been expended, so and where they've been expended. So that's something that I'd like to see from the trust. And lastly, do you know when the action plan work and the Sisson Road work will begin again? Because
you know, as time goes on, the housing crisis gets worse and worse. And, you know, while I understand that community engagement in this manner is not optimal, I think there's a point in time that, you know, we really have to move on some of these initiatives.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Don in a second, but I'll just say that the trust is meeting in May to restart those conversations. They're going to have to come up with new timelines. We have communicated with Jennifer Goldson, and she's ready to go as soon as the trust is. So I imagine that there's a possibility that that might happen on a shorter time frame. But as for the Sisson Road parcel, that's to be determined. Don, I'm not sure if you heard what Donna is asking, when the two projects, the action plan and the Sisson Road development, might resume.
Go ahead, Don, you have the floor.
Sorry, at the worst possible time, my fire alarms went off. Can you turn off the fan over there? Now, I get the frustration on your part, and I'm going to be able to say at least something tonight, because the world doesn't revolve around a lot of what you guys have been talking about. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but I'm very disappointed also in the response. 5 months ago, I was approached, and I can't tell you the actual property yet, but we are now in a purchase and sale period with due diligence for a massive piece of property in Harwich, where if we get this, it's basically a generational project. And there's no reason to believe we won't get it, because the sellers have agreed to the purchase price. So they specifically came through me, through personal contacts. When I can tell you, I will, but we've had a lot of action through the Board of Selectmen, which I'm very grateful for, conveyed us authority to hire special counsel and other services to be able to survey it and get to the point we're at. You're also going to have to forgive me. I had surgery on my knee last week, so my voice is really shot. We're at the point now where we're closing in on about 14 days from now on the final period where we're going to actually be able to close the sale. And at that point, I can actually tell you where it is and what it is. But I can assure you, if we could have told you, we would have, but that's the whole point about executive sessions. There have been several of them between the Board of Selectmen and the Housing Trust itself. We're at the point now where it's actually a pretty exciting period between starting the small-scale project on Sisson Road, which is about ready to take off, and this particular purchase, which is, as I said, is very large. So you can ask questions, but I can't answer all of them.
So I think,
Go ahead,
John, while you were out, if we can get a financial reporting of how much of the CPC funding that the trust has received since 2018 has been expended. And I don't know if you can answer this, but I have to assume that you're using CPC funds that you have on hand to assist with this purchase.
Absolutely. And for that, I'm very appreciative, because that's been a mantra in the past. I didn't start the trust. I kind of inherited it. There's going to be in excess of $900,000 that's expended, so it's pretty much going to wipe out what we've aggregated. But that's the important note to take here is this is not the same as the other projects. This is a question of things that are unknown in the future, the ability to aggregate money to be able to jump on an opportunity like this, which is in no small measure due to the CPC's gracious work over the last several years in giving us money to be able to build up that war chest, allowed me to jump on something that I've been working on now for 5 months. And it could well exceed $1 million by the time we actually look at what it is we're capable of doing with the cell tower money versus this. But it's definitely north of $900,000 that's going to be expended, and I can give you the exact figures as Carol has them. But we only had a little over $1 million worth of CPC money for the purpose of actually doing something, not for staffing, but for doing something. So it's going to pretty much wipe all of that out.
Joe, when you say that, do you mean purchase price only, and then there'll be other money that needs to be expended without getting into detail about what exactly you're doing?
Yeah, I can't tell you that the purchase price is about $80,000 less than that amount. But it also has ancillary expenses like the lawyer, the surveyor. We've been doing quite a bit of work in the background on it because, again, it took a while to get the Board of Selectmen to be on board because of the special counsel aspect of this. It wasn't really easy to deal with KP law over this. So the Board of Selectmen authorized that about 2 months ago, and we've been dealing with this virtually every other day for the last 2 months.
All set, Donna?
That's all my voice has at the moment.
Well, the nature of my question actually was for future funding related to the property, but I think it's a discussion that likely will be had at a future date.
Yeah, but I can't tell you where it is even at this point. I just need to assure you that we haven't been just sitting around and eating bonbons.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Kathy?
No questions.
Thank you, Kathy. Rob?
No questions. Thank you.
Elizabeth, are you still sitting in your chair?
Thank you. I just, one thing that Andrea brought up I think it was at the last meeting, CDP meeting, was being able to have, because you know you're going to get money from us every year, they talked about setting up a line of credit at a bank so that whenever land purchases like this come up, and I was wondering if that's, do you know what I'm talking about, Andrea, right?
Yeah, the Orleans example.
That's something that will not allow that.
We can't do that here?
No.
David and I have had these conversations too. I was a big proponent of bonding for open space 20 years ago. I've been involved with housing for 25 years. And I get that it's appealing to do that. I would love to do that. But there are people other than us that are involved in it. The legal opinion we got was that we can't do it. That doesn't necessarily mean we can't bond for something in the future, which is something I really am interested in getting involved with. But there's no such thing as a line of credit because we have what we have, and it's a hard asset, and it has to be appropriated. It has to be available. We can't use that to leverage a bank loan.
But that's what somebody's doing, right, Andrea?
The line of credit is with a bank, and then they also did the bonding with CPA funding.
No, that's quite different.
Again, I'm really appreciative of you guys giving us the money. If I didn't have it sitting in an account with Carol Coppola, we wouldn't have been talking right now. They approached me for this deal. It wasn't that I went out hunting for something. It was a family that knew me through the years, that knew what we were up to, and they came to me with first refusal rights. So if I had not had that sitting in the bank, that whole opportunity would have just evaporated.
Right. I just thought there was a way that we could have the guaranteed CPC funds every year. It shows that you'll be able to pay the interest on a loan so that you get the loan or the line of credit. But Donna, you were at that meeting. I must be misunderstanding it.
Yeah, there's two different things. So in the town of Orleans, they got a permanent, basically an override. And so they have a guaranteed funding source that's outside of CPC on an annual basis. And that's the money that they were able to use to secure a line of credit.
That's called leverage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's different than, let's say, like the CPC decided that they were going to take the 10% for housing and give it to the trust every year. That's a different thing. And then, of course, when we had Stuart here, we talked about the fact that the CPC is able to bond where the trust is not. The trust doesn't have the ability to bond. So that's what the difference is. And I think just one other thing I would say is I do think it's really important at some point in the near future that the trust and the CPC have a joint meeting to just talk about, how to work best together because, illustrated by your story, the trust cannot function without the CPC. And that was something that really came out of the training that was offered through the CDP. So I'd really like to see that happen and not necessarily wait for the strategic planning piece to happen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Elizabeth, are you all set?
I got it now. I understood. Donna explained what I was confused about. Thank you, Donna.
Mary.
Thanks, David. Hi, Dawn. Glad to see you. Really happy to hear that there's something percolating in the works. And I guess I'd say that, again, I'm glad you have the war chest available to be able to pull the trigger on a purchase. Again, that's what we talked about when we first started sending the funding, even before the trust documents were executed. That was at least the reason I was happy to vote for it every year. So I'm glad to see that it has given the trust the ability to pull the trigger on a project, and I look forward to hearing about the progress you are going to make in the near future.
All right, thank you, Mary. Kathy? Go ahead, Don, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just want to respond to what Donna and Mary said. I don't want to appear ungrateful. I am grateful. It's extremely important to have a good relationship because it isn't like most of these other projects where we're going to build a thing. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. I couldn't have told you even 6 months ago that this property was going to become available, never mind 2 or 3 years ago. To have cash on hand is extraordinarily important, and to have a mechanism to be able to bond for something in the future would be an excellent opportunity for us. But as things stand right now, I just wanted to make the point that there is no inertia. It wasn't that we didn't have any grand dreams and hopes for something, but all of those would have been dashed without the money that you folks have given us over the last several years. So again, I'm grateful for that, and there's probably other things that we could collaborate with in order to make sure that there's some stability with this.
All right, thank you, Don. Kathy, you're all set? Okay, Robert.
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, thanks. I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you. And Don, you know how I feel, how I've bitched about that leap of faith.
You've been a very good friend, David. So, and most everybody sitting in front of me is for years been a good friend to housing in general. So again, we appreciate it.
I'm happy for the town, absolutely. Okay, is there any other questions for Dawn or Andrea? Seeing none, hearing none. Thank you very much for both of you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, the Arboro House, Town of Howitch. Bob Doan, Robert presenting.
So I'd sent the picture, and that was distributed. So the work has been completed. I did reach out to Carol a week ago to see if it had been paid yet, but I never got confirmation. So I'm not sure how much we'll be able to turn back, but it should be imminent.
Bob, that bill was received and paid?
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when it gets ironed out, the board will be informed of how much to receive. So, and thank you for taking the bull by the horns.
Yeah.
Because that's what it took, I know.
Well, I think it was really happening anyways, just a teensy little push.
You're kind. Okay, any questions for Mr. Donna? No? Kathy? No? Elizabeth?
No, it's gorgeous.
Mary? Or John?
Yeah, I like the picture. It looks really nice.
Okay, again, I appreciate it. Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
Okay, we've completed. Is there anything that the board members want on?
Mary is listed.
You still have historic on the list.
Historic district. Mary, I want to hear about that, please.
Where did that go?
I don't know, David, but it's there. At the very bottom.
Oh, God. Mary, I apologize. Mary, you have the floor.
So I am pleased to report that I have an excellent HCHC member named Bob Doan, who has started the process of kind of vetting the list that we have. He's started to look at the most recent list and some of the recommendations for the clusters for a deep dive, and he's doing kind of the background work so that we can then reach out to administration and seek the town's help in order to put the kind of procurement documents together so that we can go out for an RFP to start updating the list and do the deeper dive on the clusters and do also the MACRIS forms for houses that are on the list that perhaps the MACRIS forms weren't done for. So Bob is doing really the most important work right now in kind of vetting what exists and what needs to be updated more, and those kind of special houses and special buildings that need and should get the deeper dive. So fortunately, I'm blessed in that respect that Bob is able to do that for us and use his expertise in that regard. And then once we have that available, we'll be able to really talk to the town and go forward with the procurement process. And I think we're also in a good situation where there is a new town planner starting. John Eidman has been appointed and is starting relatively soon, who has formerly worked for the commission and was actually came to the planning board and gave a wonderful presentation to us when we were originally considering the DCPC in West Harwich. So I think his background is going to be stellar in bringing that into the town hall. So I'm looking forward to moving forward on this.
Okay, thank you for that report, Mary. Any questions from the floor? We'll start with John.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mary. Mary has no questions. Elizabeth?
I have no questions for herself.
Who from the commission is becoming town planner?
John Eidman.
Okay, Robin?
Only thing I can just add a little more statistics. It looks like we've got 50 clusters about. to choose from. Most of them are very small, but we're going to whittle that down the next 2 meetings to under 10 clusters. That's all we could really budget for to work. So, but other than that, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Kathy?
No questions.
All right, thanks, Kathy. Donna?
No questions. I was just going to tell you that I did a bid for Form Bs that I'm happy to share with you that you can probably modify to take out some of the work of creating the wheel on this. So
that would be greatly appreciated, Donna.
Yeah,
very much.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Anything else from the board? All right, hearing none. Is there anything the board members want on the next agenda?
David?
Go ahead, Donna.
Can I recommend that we...
Mary, sorry.
Can I recommend that we put something on for the executive session matter in some way, shape, or form? Because I do think we may have to revisit that, whether it's sooner or, just before the meeting.
That sounds like a good idea, Mary. Jan, can you take a look at the schedule for that? When the time, not now, but when the time comes.
Well, all I would suggest is if we have town meeting in 2 weeks, y'all wanted this meeting before town meeting, yeah?
Has to be.
Okay, so did you want to come up with the time and date right now?
Oh, that's...
Maybe not.
That's tough. You know something?
We'll do it through the emails to select a date.
Okay.
Okay.
And here's a question for Donna or Mary. If an hour before town meeting, we have some type of information about one of the articles that would make a difference whether or not it came off a town meeting floor by the chair, do we have to post that?
So, David, I would think you would have to post a meeting before town meeting. We typically post a meeting for planning board so that we have a meeting posted, we convene before town meeting, and that way, if there's something we need to vote on either before or during, that we can convene and do that. So that's not unusual to do that. Typically, your finance committees and your board of selectmen do the same.
Okay, I'm wrapped around town meeting, so we can use a placeholder.
Yeah. And then if you don't need it, you just cancel the meeting, but you're better off to post in case you do need it. And typically it's that morning, like Mary said, usually the finance committee and the board of selectmen are posted for the day of town meeting.
Okay,
we have had a meeting before town meeting, and we've had to post it on the town website and whatnot.
Okay, is there video involved in that?
This time, most likely.
Do we have to go through this format?
No.
Okay.
This format's not required under the open meeting law. It's when possible. So we would, find a location before town meeting, whether that's off to the side or wherever. Just like we did when we had to revote the motions in 2017 or 2018. I don't remember which of the two. I want to say it was 2017. We had to meet before town meeting and with the town administrator and town council. So it's a similar thing. We may have to have some housekeeping cleanup beforehand.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if we want to do a placeholder right now, I mean, the 6th, 2 weeks from tonight, I'm certainly available.
Okay.
I'm not a bit. I have a housing trust meeting on the 6th. The earliest I would be done with that would be 7 o'clock. But I mean, because we don't have an answer on the Article 27, the East Methodist Church yet, right?
That's
Okay. All right. Because I noticed in that article, it doesn't say anything about a grant agreement. It doesn't, like some of the other articles, it says, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter a grant agreement, and that one does not. And I thought that was kind of critical to the entire discussion that we had up to this point in time.
That's interesting. You're right. I mean, that was the recommendation of the attorney, the town attorney. I'll take a look at that and address it.
Okay, thank you.
So we're talking about 2 different possible placeholders, right?
Yeah.
1 2 weeks from tonight and 1 Saturday morning. So I would have thought Saturday morning would be a better choice, just because on some critical things, there could be wheels in motion up until the last minute.
Absolutely, John.
And FinCom and the select board always meet, you know, at the end of the field before and have their meeting. So they might come up with something completely different that we would need to respond to. So I think the Saturday morning is the best option.
Okay.
Do we have agreement?
Yeah.
Okay, would you formalize that, Jan, please?
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else? And if any of this information comes up earlier, I'll send out a blast to the board as soon as I hear. But I am anticipating last minute action. So we'll see what happens. All right, I'm tired. Can I have a vote to close the meeting, please?
So moved.
Is there a motion and a second? Roll call vote. David Nixon, aye. John?
John Ketchum, aye.
Mary?
Mary Maslowski, aye.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Harder, aye.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick, aye. Thank you, everyone.
Kathy?
Kathy Green, aye.
Robert?
Robert Doan, aye.
And Jan, thanks for being patient. Okay, good night, folks.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.